sé por qué tan rápido de ti, porque me deseé, porque te conocí. Si miras para mí, el mundo gira y gira, y cuando me recibo, quizás no sean menos. Entonces tú sabrás, la vida es un sueño en donde al despertar encuentras el final y el comienzo para mí. Amado de olvidar.
And there, my friends, you see what is called a merengue. This was filmed at the Cinco de Mayo event that we had last week, and I thought you'd enjoy that. Welcome to meeting number 5,299. This is beginning of the last couple months for me, so I get choked up just thinking of it. May birthdays, we got Frank Bellamini. He joined Rotary just after he turned 30 in 1964. 30 was as young as you could be and joined the club. And he's been with us for 57 years. He's a retired CPA and was a partner at Deloitte, Touche, and Tomatsu, now known as Deloitte. So happy birthday, Frank. Now we have County Supervisor representing District 3 for the what used to be for Dave Cortese. Otto is an immigrant from Hong Kong. He went to UC Berkeley, got his BS in chemical and nuclear engineering, law degree from Hastings. His grandfather served in the Navy, U.S. Navy, World War II. So Otto joined the Navy and was an officer on a guided missile carrier in the Gulf War and served in Baghdad. Came home to Sunnyvale, where he served on the city council while running his intellectual property firm, and he bested Kenson Chu for District 3. So Otto, are you there? Come in, Otto. Roger, over. Well, let's see. What else can I tell you about Otto? He's a very aggressive and cheerful guy. He's married. He's got 2 children and his wife, Sally. And I'm pretty sure that I saw that we communicated the address for him, but let's go
Hi,
on.
this is Eric. I'm calling from I'm on with Supervisor Lee's office. I was on before, but had a little technical glitch, so I bumped off. We're waiting for the supervisor to join us. Is that what I think I just missed?
Yes. Is he able to join us now?
Yeah, he should be able to join us. I know we just came from a site visit at the Reed Hillview Airport. So I know that he knows about the meeting. We just parted a couple minutes ago, so he should be trying to join on. He could be having a technical glitch. So let me just double check with him real quick and see if we'll make sure we get him on.
Okay. In the meantime, while you're doing that, we're going to introduce a new member, and that'll only be for 3 minutes. So stay tuned, and once our new member is through, maybe you can come back on, Eric. Okay.
Okay, great. Yes.
Okay, we've got Jonathan Wiley. He's a realtor with Cushman and Wakefield. Apparently, Adobe Systems is his main client. He's sponsored with Debbie Caminetti. So, Jonathan, tell us in 3 minutes all about you.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. Well, my name is Jonathan Wiley. I was born and raised in Orange County into a family of 8. In that group, I'm towards the tail end and happened to actually be a Irish triplet with my 2 younger sisters. In fact, starting next month and through September, we're all the same age year. As we get older, I now have siblings in Boise, Seattle, one in South England, and I was thrilled to find out that there is a chapter out in Bournemouth. So now it's a matter of just getting my sister to sign up. I have 5 amazing nieces and nephews and another coming in July. So the family, the photos are just, growing larger. They're going to be panoramic at some point. Fun fact about my family heritage is both my parents are adopted. And just recently we took the 23andMe, and which provided quite a bit of insight as to where our family heritage comes from. So I spent some time living in San Luis Obispo during my college years, or junior college years, where I achieved my associates in science and economics and mathematics from Cuesta College. While living in San Luis Obispo, hungry college kid to make ends meet. I found various jobs on Craigslist, mowing lawns, painting houses, just typical housework. And one of the customers that I had, quote unquote customers, eventually invited me to their office where I showed up in painting attire, ready to do some touch-up work. Little did I know is that I was walking into an interview and where they offered me my first coordinating role. And I always look back fondly on those experiences and thank Vacom Technologies all the time about having faith in a clueless kid like myself. I later graduated from Chico State, California. My studies were in business management with an emphasis in project management and a minor in HR. After school, spent some time down south, and eventually I've moved up to San Jose, where I've lived for almost 5 years, and I've truly loved it since day one. Although I did think I was getting away from the traffic in LA, only to find out that there's traffic in California, let's just say. But the people, the opportunities, and so much more have made San Jose feel like home. As mentioned, I have the wonderful opportunity to work at Cushman & Wakefield for the Adobe account in downtown. Over the years, I've held previous roles as a coordinator, a regional manager, and now am a global transportation manager. And my unofficial title through shutdown has been a team building facilitator. It's really important for me to bring people together and see some smiles. A few other associations I'm a part of are the Association of Commuter Transportation, the Young Professionals in Transportation, and the Central Coast Wildlife Society.
Well, welcome, Jonathan. Thank you very much for coming on board. And we can't wait to start meeting in person so all the rest of us can get a chance to meet you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Eric, are you still with us?
I am. And I just spoke to Otto a couple minutes ago, and he should be attempting to log in any second now, hopefully.
All right, well, we'll give him the professional courtesies of another minute or so.
And I will, I'm going to add into the chat for everyone to look at. We just have some contact information, a couple of links and information that we have. We have a newsletter sign up, and we just added to our website a couple of links for request forms for meetings or event appearances. So should you guys have any upcoming events that you'd like to have Otto attend, especially whether they're virtual or especially now that we're in yellow tier and we're reopening, we're starting to schedule some event appearances as well with the supervisor.
Well, I see Otto's handsome face on the screen there, so it looks like we're good. Otto, you ready to go?
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, Fernando. Thank you so much, Sir President. Give me your President's time to speak, I believe, about 9 or 10 minutes. So first of all, good afternoon, everybody of the San Jose Rotary. Truly an honor to be speaking with you again. Last time I spoke actually was back in 2009 in July. Dave Ginsburg actually was able to arrange that when I was here for the R&R. If you recall, 2009, I actually was deployed to Iraq for a year. So in the midpoint, when I was back for a couple of weeks, I actually came and spoke with Rotary to talk about how things were going on in Iraq and back there and the drawdown and all that. So anyways, today's topic is very different. Now I've most recently been elected to the Board of Supervisors, District 3, to succeed Dave Cortese, who's now, of course, our state senator, to represent North Sunnyvale, Alviso, Milpitas, of course, part of San Jose, including Beressa, all the way down to Evergreen. So it's about almost 400,000 residents in this district here, but 1/5 of the county. When I first ran, one of my big things I was trying to work on, of course, is about how housing affordability and unhoused and homeless problem we have, along with some of the issues regarding traffic, for example. But after I started running for 2 years, things certainly have changed. This thing called COVID certainly upended everybody's life, so that became the number one issue. And after having been elected on the county board of supervisors, the testing issues, the vaccination issues, all became part of my job, in making sure that it's equitably distributed in the different areas of our county. And certainly, I would say that things were pretty bleak, for a while, especially back in December, January. But I would say that, things have really, really turned around. And I'm very honored to say that we now have over supply, in the sense that we're more supply than demand on vaccines. So there's absolutely zero. There's no issue in terms of getting vaccines nowadays. So if anybody who still have any hesitancy, any reason why they thought they can get it, they've been turned away, this is really, really a great time to go and get your vaccine if you have not yet started the vaccination. Whether you want 1 shot, 2 shot, we have all the vaccines available, and we have opened so many different sites. Some you can make appointments. Many of the sites to make appointments can also take drop-in as well. So just want to make sure that the word gets out there. As you have heard, since last week now, we have been opening for 12 years old and up. So if you have kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews who have not gotten the vaccines yet, this is a great time. If you haven't gotten yourself and the niece or nephew or grandkids, you can make it a family event to go to get vaccinated. And we have even relaxed the rule. Initially, obviously, with the short-term vaccine, we only vaccinated based on categories, based on ages, and based on the risk of the individuals, like the long-term healthcare facilities and whatnot. Now we have so much vaccine available, we're actually even allowing people outside the county, outside Santa Clara County, to get vaccinated, because we believe everybody needs to be protected, whether they live here or work here or not. So we have friends and families that actually live in San Mateo or Santa Cruz or wherever else they're at, and they that they need the vaccines, and we're happy to vaccinate them as well. The really good news today that's been announced is that we are now at yellow tier. We're no longer orange. Remember, there's the red tier, there's the orange tier, there's now we're at the yellow tier, which is great, because what that means is that a lot more things could be open, and hopefully by June 15th, we expected that all the tiers basically go away so that we could completely open up. The big numbers we have, over 1.2 million individuals, 1.2 million people in Santa Clara County have at least one vaccines already, and that at this point, even including the 12-year-olds and up, we are over close to 60% being fully vaccinated. So this is really amazing numbers that we've been able to accomplish. No small thanks to all the work of our county employees that's been deployed in so many different departments to make these huge vaccination sites available. Many have heard about what happens at Levi Stadium, right? At one point, we were vaccinating close to 15,000 people in one day at the Levi's. We're no longer able to do that because the demand is much lower, actually, than we used to. We're certainly vaccinating a lot of second vaccines right at this moment, but the first vaccines numbers are definitely dropping. Now that we have more 12 to 15-year-olds coming through, we certainly have a bit of a bump. So, for example, my daughter's high school, Wilcox High School, is actually having a pop-up tent coming up next week. So we're certainly promoting a lot of these events, whether the vaccines at the traditional sites, or we're just trying to make it as easy, as convenient as possible for everybody to get the vaccines. And really, for us to get out of this COVID mess, vaccination by far is the most important things. For some of you who have doubts about any of the safety issues or the side effects, I'm sure there's so many of us in the Rotary here in the room in the video could testify personally ourselves. I've got my 2 vaccines doses. It's really, really incredibly safe in the sense that my side effects are very mild. The arm was sore a little bit. I was very tired the day of the second vaccine, but other than that, there was very, very mild effect. So anybody have any doubts and you want to wait more guinea pigs to go through, trust me, we already have 1.2 million people in Santa Clara County has done it and really have no any of the major type of issues, side effects that you hear about. We haven't really experienced any of them, and that's the best statistics I can give you. And I think we're fortunate in Santa Clara County that we get the right vaccines. We got the Pfizer, we got the Moderna, and of course the Johnson & Johnson is slightly more controversial, but all 3 are available. So whichever one you want, those are all available to you, unless you're like 16 under. Or if you're not adult, you have to get the Pfizer, which, by the way, is a great vaccine. I got the Pfizer myself, my daughters as well. And you know, it's thanks for posting. Yes, if you want to help volunteers to get vaccines out to people, that's great. But many of the stuff that we really need also is the PSA, the friends to friends, whether it's on social media, on email, and telling your friends. So if you know anybody who is still having questions and doubts, feel free to have them sent to my office, otto.lee@bos.scc.gov.org. Now have Eric post my address on the chat box so you can reach us. I'll be happy to talk to anybody about it. I truly believe that this is really something that is so important. I mean, vaccinations, I mean, different communities have different experiences. And I just want to share a story which I found interesting. We try to do the data segregation and look at the different communities' vaccination rates. And it turns out that the Vietnamese American community has a very high number of vaccinations as opposed to many of the other groups. And one of the reasons we learned is that many of the Vietnamese communities came here when they were as refugees. And when they were coming in the 70s or 80s, they all went through the public health system to get all the vaccinations up because they didn't have vaccination where they came from. And I think they have such a good trust of our public health program that when we told them that, hey, this vaccine is safe, go get vaccinated, they just came right through and do it. Versus some of the other communities have a complete different experiences of vaccines, right? Historically, we all know that. Like, for example, African Americans have been using guinea pigs, right, in the 50s. Of course, like, gee, you know, with that type of history, why would you want to get a vaccine? You want to wait it out. And I could tell you right now, I think whatever people thought, oh, this thing's been too fast, you approved these vaccines for too quick. I tell you, we did not take any shortcut on getting the vaccines out. We have gotten rid of all of the red tapes in terms of number of people, in terms of tests. That really has been something that's truly incredible. So I want to make sure that the message today I'm giving anybody is like, if you know anybody who haven't gotten it, especially if you haven't gotten it yourself, this is the time to get it. Yeah. Okay. And as far as
about a minute, Otto, if you want.
Yeah, so unhoused, of course, is our big problem, and with the eviction moratorium probably be ending in a few months. We're not really concerned about the increase of homelessness. We have increased more access out now. For example, we like Sunnyvale with a pilot project to move 31 individuals into hotels, and that so far has been successful. They've been cleaned up and they've been getting jobs, and we're ready to open up another pilot project up in Mountain View regarding these containerized housing. By the way, some of you might know, back in Iraq, I actually lived in a container for about a year as a soldier back then. And I tell you, containerized housing works. And so there's a great project coming through with over 120 units built. So I'm hoping to see that finish in the next few weeks. Lots of really great ideas. And I really think we need to fire all engines to get those housing built as soon as possible. NIMBY is one of the biggest problems, obviously, and we have to educate the neighbors, but we are working hard on that as well. Yesterday, I spent 3 hours in jail. No, I was just visiting. And it's in not great shape, trust me. And we have a lot of exciting projects coming up, potentially building a mental health facilities for our inmates, in addition to building new facilities for jail, get rid of all the old ones, including.
Well, Otto, you've got a lot of work ahead of you. We got a little turned around here with the timing, and I apologize for that, but
Sure.
we wanted to give you an opportunity to come on and tell us about what you're doing there, because it's been an experiment in having the city council members come and all of the board of supervisors come and greet us, meet us, and so we can see them and talk to them and learn a little bit about elected officials and have the elected officials learn a little bit about Rotary. So I've got a history book of Rotary that I'm going to make sure that I get it over to you. So
Great.
Thanks so much for coming on board here.
Thank you for having me.
And lots of luck with you. Yeah.
I'll need it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Next, we've got Bert George, who's going to do the eulogy for our beloved Mel Matsushima, who died on April 22nd this year. Bert?
Yes, Fernando, thank you. Our great picture, beautiful. And this is the ceremony at the cemetery. That's wonderful. So I am truly blessed today, and for Julie to pick me to do this eulogy is wonderful. There could have been 100 Rotarians that did this one today that could probably do it better than I. But Mel and I were good friends. And for those Rotarians that really didn't know Mel and really don't know Julie, this is the pillars of our club. I mean, these two people, and losing Mel is going to be a big one. There's no doubt about it. But he was a pillar of our club. 45 years, perfect attendance. And I'll tell you a little bit about Mel. If anybody saw last Sunday in the obituary in the paper, in the Mercury News, it was so beautifully written. And I think that maybe, Leslie, we could print that out in the newsletter coming up soon, because it does much better than I could ever say. But the small of it is, Mel was born in 1941 and he passed away April 22nd of this year. He went to University of California, San Francisco Dentistry School, and he was a dentist. As soon as he got his degree, he actually joined the Air Force and spent 2 years giving his time with the Air Force. Then he turned to private practice, and he did that for 43 years, if you can imagine that. And he was right on Park Avenue. And I told this little story that Mel and I knew each other long before I knew Mel, because my grandmother lived in the Rose Garden and I lived in Willow Glen. And every day my dad would go to visit my grandmother and drive down Park Avenue, going to her home. And Mel would be at the door, at the window, waving from that second story to my dad every morning about 6:30 in the morning. So I heard Mel's name long before I knew Mel. Like I said, Rotary service, 43 years, and then not just 43 years, but 43 years with perfect attendance, which is amazing, just amazing. Paul Harris Fellow, Endowment Fellow, Ruby level, for those who know what that is. I really got to know Mel because we did a lot of barbecues and things and dinners for the big event each year, and we would sell these things. And I kind of caught on to the coattails of what Julie and Mel were doing, and then Cindy and I got involved, and we did some things in Napa, and it was amazing at how precise everything was when we would do these dinners. I mean, Mel, they would come up 2 days beforehand. They would have the tables laden with flowers and just gorgeous a day or two beforehand, and put this beautiful tarp over it to make sure it was perfect for the day of the event. It was wonderful. But then I really got to know Mel, of course, through the barbecues and things. But when we did the play garden, he was on with Julie and, of course, and myself and Mike Block and the guys. And when we did the play garden, there were some days there, you know, when we looked at it and said, you know, we need to raise $4 or $5 million. And there are some days where we are stuck at about $1 million or $1.2 million. And I thought, boy, this is a dark day. This is going to be tough. And I look over around that room and see Mel and Julie and the reasons they were putting that play garden together. And I had no doubt that we were going to be able to raise that money. No doubt, with Mel and Julie sitting there. So it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Beautiful people for sure. You know, his granddaughter Amy is one of the reasons we did the play garden, and it got completed. And Mel, for those of you who don't know, spent so much time bringing her down to Los Angeles to see specialists, but they actually brought her to Poland. If you can imagine this trip, well, imagine it 7 times they took her to Poland to get special treatment. These are amazing, amazing people. We don't just get these people in Rotary. This is a big loss, and I'm sorry to lose Mel, and I love you, Julie, and I know everybody that knew Mel and knows you, Julie, that our hearts are broken, but here we are. So I said this at the, I'm sorry, one more thing. Aloha in Hawaii, Hawaiian, of course, means hello and goodbye, and I just want to say aloha, Mel.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you. Now we've got Jeremy Harris. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Bert. Next week, don't forget, you'll have a fine opportunity to tell us some good news and at the same time contribute something to our foundation. I'm hoping that you'll remember to share your good news with Gay Crawford. Also, you should know that our club was organized May 22, 1914. And June 9th, we'll have the spring barbecue, and there'll be more information in Friday's bulletin. And no club meeting at noon on June 9th. Keep that in mind, and we'll see you at the barbecue. And if you're interested, you can plan to attend the virtual Rotary International Conference Convention, June 12th through 16th. And you can register at convention.rotary.org for details. And also our district, Rotary District 5170, is going to host a in-person event for all Rotarians and guests and their families. It's a conference, a roast and toast event, Saturday on July 17th. You'll be receiving word from that from your next president that's coming up pretty soon, Steve Borkenhagen. It'll be at Gilroy Gardens, and that'll be July 17th, so mark your calendars. Hey, we made it. Suzanne St. John Crane, 2010 CEO of ALF, is introducing our next speaker. Are you there, Suzanne?
I am here, President Fernando. Thanks so much. Gosh, speaking of rock star Rotarians and Rotary presidents or presidents to be, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our speaker today, President-elect Steve Borkenhagen. So Steve's going to share his personal story with us, as well as his vision and hopefully the theme of his Rotary year, right, Steve? And I would encourage you to please chat your questions directly to me for Steve, and happy to moderate those when he's done speaking to us. So I'm not going to read, obviously, his bio and everything. We don't want to give away the story before he gets on, but I just want to say that I started working in San Jose almost 13 years ago now. And Steve has just been one of the most generous, fun, community-minded colleagues and friends I've had the pleasure to work with and go camping with. But we're not going to tell any of those stories today about his ALF wilderness trip. His extreme love of music and desire to invite everyone into that experience, that joy, whether at the Jazz Fest or as a part of the amazing and inspiring Rashanathon, which I just love and miss, or hosting his ALF graduation upstairs at Cafe Stritch. I think it really exemplifies his commitment to community building. So we are in for another great year at Rotary Friends. Please help me in welcoming a man who is the confluence of all things urban, musical, and fun. Our friend and soon to be our Rotary president, Steve Borkenhagen.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm really happy to be here today. And first, I want to say we're all going to really miss Mel Matsushima, a dear friend of mine. Bert did a beautiful job. And Julie, don't forget, lean on all of your Rotary family. You know, we all care about you deeply. We'll do anything for you. And I also wanted to give a shout out to my friend Jeremy Harris. I think his Old Lang Syne is as good as it gets. So thanks, Jeremy. Also, I'd like to welcome a guest I have today, which is Bob Rao. Bob was in our club for many years, quit a few years ago. He was one of the co-founders of the Lee Weimers Emerging Artists Awards, along with Stuart Slater and me. And Bob is listening in today. So thanks, Bob. So here we go. It's an amazing coincidence that I'm only an expert at one thing, and it happens to be today's topic. And the topic is me and my roots. And I'll say that I'm really the luckiest person I know. It kind of sounds ridiculous, but I actually really think it's true. Excuse me. I grew up in really an American paradise. I like to say I'm Opie Taylor from Mayberry. Some of you young people might not get this, but just ask someone who lived through the 60s and you'll understand. So where did I grow up and why? My local family story begins about 100 years ago. A young man named Nicholas Barisic left Brač, an island in Dalmatia, Croatia, in about 1913 or so. If you've ever visited Dalmatia, you know that he left an island paradise. His village of about 100 people is called Lozishu. I don't actually speak Croatian, so that was pretty bad, I'm sure. He came to America along with millions of other poor Europeans in search of a better life. Many of these hardworking men traveled over 5,000 miles to work in mines and do other manual labor. They traveled across the Atlantic Ocean in the bottom of large ships in steerage, likely on straw beds with no bedding and virtually no sanitation. You can only imagine what that was like. Lots of misery. But they thought that the roads in this new country were lined with gold. My grandma actually told me that. Until World War I, there was an open door immigration policy into the United States for most immigrants around the world. My grandpa went to Arizona and worked in a mine for a few years. Had to be about the worst work possible. Every time I see miners to this day, I'm really moved by it. And he came to a small town in Northern California, and this little town was called Santa Clara. It was home to a Catholic mission that had been there since 1777 and a little Jesuit college that had been there since 1851. The population of this little town was about 5,000. 5,000. So he then did what many European men of his time did after he got a bit organized. He ordered a wife from his home village in the old country. And that's exactly what they always called Yugoslavia, the old country. I don't think I ever even heard them say Croatia or Yugoslavia. They just said the old country. His mail order bride was my grandma, Madeline Domich, and she desperately tried to convince her sister to come to America to replace her as the mail order bride, but her mother refused. So she ended up here. She lived for over 60 years in Santa Clara in the United States, but she never fully recovered from the trauma of being torn away from her mother as a young woman. And neither of my maternal grandparents ever returned to Croatia. They only left Santa Clara County a few times in their whole lives after they arrived here. They lived a very small world that largely was revolved around my family. They survived the Depression with their 4 kids by hosting Croatian boarders in their home. And you can only imagine how little income these people had during the Depression. And they really realized their version of the American dream: food on the table, their own home, and children and grandchildren who prospered in this wonderful new place called America. So why Santa Clara? If you've ever been to Italy or Croatia, you know the answer. The same latitude, the same crops, the same perfect weather, and lots of Croatians. That was really the answer, lots of Croatians. What could be better for these people? They never learned to speak English well. The first language spoken by their daughter, my mom, was Croatian. They called it Slav. And I'm sure if Skip Franich is here today, he can totally relate to these stories. I'll bet his is identical to mine. We used to go to Napredak Hall. That was the Croatian Cultural Center when we were kids. I clearly remember all these old ladies. They were probably 20 years younger than I am now, but there were these old ladies whose husbands had died, and they all wore black. They wore black for the rest of their lives after their husbands died. And I think these women all lived 20 years longer than their peasant husbands. A lot of these husbands did difficult work like mine work that caused them to die young. These women spent full time in the kitchen making the best food you can imagine. I can tell you that from personal experience, and it really smelled good. There was a stock pot on the stove 24/7. I could still smell rosemary and garlic, olive oil, fresh tomatoes from the garden. And there was always this gritty homemade red wine that we were allowed to drink as children with water, and always a prosciutto hanging in the dusty basement. My grandma would wring the necks of the chickens. We would dump the garbage right into the garden. My grandma didn't produce any garbage. She didn't really buy anything processed. So if she had garbage service, she was being charged for something she never used. And their house was our little Santa Clara paradise. And I think this is the European immigrant story of the 20th century. And I was lucky enough to witness it in my grandparents and in my mom's family. If you visualize The Godfather, but you substitute Croatians for Sicilians, that was my youth. I'm culturally Croatian, definitely not German. So what about the Germans, the Borkenhagens? My dad was born in Minnesota in 1924. and he came to Southern California after his dad died in about 1935, playing golf, no less. My dad went off to war along with 16 million other American boys, and don't be deceived, they were boys who became men very quickly. They were very young. My uncle lied about his age and went to World War II when he was 15. About 50% of the eligible American men served during World War II. 50%. You can imagine what the society was like without all these young men. And my dad would likely have died in what they called the Great Invasion of Japan if it had ever taken place. Thankfully, it never took place, and he survived the war. My dad was the one who called out the forming opposition on our block when our first Mexican neighbors arrived. There was a movement to stop them, and he and one other neighbor stood up to this forming mob and defended our new next door neighbors. And they moved in, all was well, and it was the beginning of a new era for our block. And this was the flowering of the compassion of Jesuit education that my dad had received. He was only about 25 when this happened. This was before I was born. So I'm very proud of my dad. He was a quiet, principled man, Roosevelt Democrat, just like my mom, and many others in their generation. And he gave me many of the greatest gifts one could hope for: the love of jazz and classical music, books, art, and sports. And he even gave me a golf swing. Thanks, Dad. Sports have made an immense difference in my life to this day. They gave me joy as a kid, great joy as a kid. We lived for sports. Physical confidence, physical health, the lessons of teamwork and respect for others. I always tried to respect my opponents. I think people in sports forget a lot of times that without opponents, you don't have competition, you can't have sports. So at its best, sports is a dance. Dad was a school teacher who believed in education as the great equalizer. He was the dad standing on his head doing yoga and playing trumpet in his New Orleans jazz band with a cigarette hanging out from his lips when the other dads were doing, well, whatever the other dads did in the 50s and 60s. I'm really not sure what the other dads did, but my dad was one of a kind. So how did he get to Santa Clara after the war? The GI Bill of Rights that you've all heard of as the GI Bill funded college education for any college a GI was accepted to attend. And my dad chose Santa Clara after considering another Jesuit college, Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. And I just want to say thank you, Dad, for choosing Santa Clara, because if not, I'd be in Omaha right now, maybe. And I think he quickly remembered Minnesota winters when he was considering college. And when he compared Minnesota and California, I think he went with California's weather. So my dad, Jim Borkenhagen, met my mom, Lucille Barasich, at a USO dance in downtown San Jose shortly after the war. My dad was one of the millions of returning soldiers who were 22 to 30 years old, had been to war, and they were now freshmen in college with a bunch of snot-nosed 18-year-olds. If you can only imagine what this must have been like. These men were interested in studying and working and making money and building lives with their families, not screwing around like typical college freshmen. My dad used to tell me that it was kind of an absurd juxtaposition of these veterans with these young kids early in the college years. My mom was born in 1922 and was the archetypal mom of the 50s and 60s. She spoiled us. We were allowed to play all day, every day, while she kept house and took perfect care of her kids, her 5 kids. She never worked outside the house. My dad was a middle school teacher. She loved my dad and all of us. That was really her life. There were 7 of us in a 1,050 square foot little tract house in Santa Clara, and we wanted for nothing, and I mean nothing. They paid off their house in 20 years and never moved. You know, why would they move? This was a different time and place. Their house cost $9,000 in 1949, and their mortgage payment was about $50. My dad earned about $2,000 a year in the early 50s, and they always saved money. Every month they saved money. And again, we wanted for nothing. One of my favorite stories about my mom is about her aversion to blood. And I was a pretty active kid, always playing and fighting and rolling around, getting cut and such. And I had lots of cuts and scratches and stitches all the time. I must have had hundreds of stitches when I was a kid. And one day when I was 9 or 10, I got a deep gash in my chin riding my bike. So I rode my bike home, probably holding maybe nothing on my chin, just bleeding all over the place. And I went in, I told my mom about the wound, and she looked away, and I was in the bathroom, and she said, okay, look in the mirror in the bathroom and describe the wound to me. So I looked in the mirror, and I told her how long it was and that it was kind of gross and it was really deep. And she said, well, here's $1, get on your bike and ride to Kaiser and go get stitches. And again, I was 9 or 10 years old. Kaiser was probably 2 miles away. So I rode my bike to the hospital, paid my $1 and got my stitches and returned home for dinner. Another day in paradise. And today, I'm sure my mom would be arrested for child abuse for doing that. But that's how we ran in those days. And those were the good old days at Kaiser. Stitches, $1. Childbirth, $1. Brain surgery, $1. Everything was $1. And medicine was really cheap. Even when I was raising my kids, medicine was extremely affordable. So our parents let us be kids. We had lots of love and lots of fun, and our worth did not come from money. Santa Clara was a great place for young kids, and there were thousands of young kids everywhere. Bike rides, baseball, Willie Mays. Just ask Gary Scher about Willie Mays if you haven't already heard the story. And Santa Clara University, which reminds me of one of my childhood capers. I think the tallest building in Santa Clara in 1965 was about 30 feet tall. And here comes this 10-story dorm at Santa Clara University, Swig Hall. Some of you were probably at Santa Clara in those days. But my 12-year-old friends and I would sneak to the top after the construction workers left and the steel was all erected. And we would throw Frisbees into the surrounding neighborhood from 100 feet in the air. And then we'd go on our bikes and chase down the Frisbees. It was really wonderful. My family was lifted directly from 1950s family TV shows, Visualize Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver and all that. Or maybe I should say those shows were about the Borkenhagens. Dad worked as a teacher, mom kept house, and I had 3 sisters and a brother. My sisters are Cindy, Lisa, and Laura. My brother was Jim. Catholics in those days had to name their children after saints, but I can tell you we were anything but saints. My brother and I tormented our poor sister Cindy, and I'm still embarrassed about it as much as anything in my life more than 50 years later. We all went to public school, and I loved school. It was really easy for me, especially math. And why wouldn't it be? My older brother and sister were first-rate students who had just finished mastering everything I studied. We took almost exactly the same classes, largely from the same teachers. Jim won lots of academic awards, and Cindy was the valedictorian of her class, and she was only 1 year ahead of me in school. And my dad was a teacher. So I had 3 full-time tutors, really. So if you can't get it right with that, you got a real problem. When I would arrive in class on the first day of school, and this happened to me from when I was in first grade until when I was even in some classes in college, the teachers would look down at me and they'd say, Borkenhagen, are you related to Jim and Cindy? And I'd say, yeah. And then they'd make this expression, meaning you have big shoes to fill. I'm not going to let you screw up. I really loved it. But I was always a lousy science student. I never quite got biology and chemistry, even though I loved physics, but who knows? Life is strange. When your name is Borkenhagen, you have lots of nicknames. Bork, Borky, the Borkman, the Borkster, all kinds of Borks. My nickname was Bogey until I went to college. And actually, it didn't come from golf, even though it could have. It just was a abbreviation that my friends liked when I was about 5 years old, and it stuck. And many people didn't even know my first name. One of my dad's brothers became George Bork, and another one became Peter Hagen. So to this day, I still hear variations of Bork once in a while. I was born in Santa Clara on October 12, 1952. That's Columbus Day. Just goes to show you can't get away from those darn Italians. They're everywhere. The population of Santa Clara was about 10,000. It was all orchards. The population of the big city, San Jose, was about 95,000, but don't be deceived. San Jose was a real city with a bustling downtown. And some of the older members will all remember that. Both cities have grown approximately tenfold in population in the last 70 years. Harry Truman was president. I'm going to say that again. When I was born, Harry Truman was president. When I say that, it feels like I'm saying Lincoln was president, but just the way it is. People who fought in the Civil War were still alive when I was a young man. Let that one sink in. So what did I do after college? I was married at 22. We opened our first business at 22, first child at 24. So much for college. I always wanted to be a teacher and possibly a constitutional scholar, but instead I became an expert at changing diapers and mopping floors. And that's actually really come in handy over the years. So I'm still doing that to some extent. And that's when I met my wife-to-be. And I then met a couple of 12-year-old punks in Willow Glen. No, not you, Yoder. They were Jack Hayes and Bert George. Jack's my wife's brother, and Bert was, well, Bert was a miniature version of Bert. He was mini Bert. My wife, friends, and I opened Camera One Cinema in 1975 and Eulipia Restaurant in 1977. Can you remember downtown San Jose in the mid-70s? I know some of you can. It looked like Dresden after the war. There were whole city blocks that were demolished, porn theaters all over the place. The hooker patrol would scare the Johns away. And it was the perfect place for some young guys to open restaurants and theaters and try to build a real city. So we've been at it for almost 50 years. And it's finally blossoming. I'll get to that later. About 30 years later, after my life in restaurants and bars and such, I worked for Carl Salas. Thank you, Carl. I had no real skill, but he trusted me to do energy efficiency studies for restaurants and hotels. When I passed the LEED, that's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design exam, Carl laughed so hard he nearly wet his pants because some of the engineers and the architects didn't pass and I did. And he and I still laugh about that to this day. Then I was part of the team that built San Pedro Square Market. And then I helped my sons, Mike and Max, build and operate Cafe Stritch, which is owned by my son, Mike. And now I'm working with my dear friends, John Ball and Christine Davis, to bring an architectural and artistic landmark to our city. I think most of you know that story. Really, what could be more fun? My oldest son, Mike, was born in 77, followed by Matt in 82, Melissa in 83, and Max in 88. All I remember about when Matt and Melissa were little, because they were about a year apart, was just being tired for about 2 or 3 years and a lot of diapers. I really enjoyed raising my kids, and they're still great inspirations to me, all 4 of them. And my son, Matt, has 3 children, so that makes me a grandfather. That's good stuff. My life has been really wonderful, but not without its suffering and failures. My best friend, my older brother, Jim, committed suicide in 2005. It's still raw, but it helped me in a really weird way. When someone close to you commits suicide, you feel this deep, deep pain. But that moment, that was the low point of my life, in a strange way liberated me from a lot of fear and stress. I'll just never forget the strange feeling I had sitting on my front porch at 2 or 3 in the morning the night after my brother died, drinking a beer and realizing that next to losing your best friend, everything else is just minor details. So why be stressed? Why be afraid? It's really helped me over the years to contextualize chaos. My marriage also failed after almost 40 years, and I'm not proud of that. So what really matters to me after all these years? Family, friends, building a new great downtown, and hopefully that we can all contribute to a peaceful world that's safe from wars and climate catastrophe. My life is really rich and full of family, friends, music, books, and golf. Never enough golf. Remember that. I have a fabulous partner, Vic Corsilia's daughter, Taryn Corsilia. Thank you, Vic. I have more friends than any single person deserves. If you want to meet a lot of people, work at the front desk of a busy urban restaurant. I did that for decades, and that's where I met many of you. So what's next? I continue to work on Breeze of Innovation with my partners, John Ball and Christine Davis, and our first-rate advisors and friends, Dave Henderson, Sean O'Kane, Dave Lavelle, Ernie Amani, Fernando Zazueta, thank you, Fernando, Randy Zeckman and Dan Polcrano, and many, many others. Thanks to all of you. And many, many people in this club are donors to our project. We really appreciate your trust and your generosity. I've been in Rotary almost half of my life, and I'm really proud of that. It's been very meaningful to me. Some of my best Rotary experiences include going to Guatemala twice on Rotoplas missions with our fearless leader, Cindy George, and Leslie Hamilton, and many of you. It's very powerful. If you haven't gone on a Rotoplas mission, give yourself a gift and do that. Our homeless committee with John Kowaleski, Morris Chubb, and Brian Franklin has been really great work. I really loved the adult gift of life work with Gary Silver's committee when I worked on that years ago. And then we've had really great time with the Lee Weimer's Emerging Artists Committee, thanks to Jerry Weimer's giving us permission to do that. And then anything I've done with my dear friend Bob Keeve has been really wonderful in Rotary. I really miss Bob a lot. So I need to mention some of my most important teachers, mentors, and friends: my dad, my mom, my brother, my 4 wonderful kids. My personal Mount Rushmore has on it John Turco, Bob Keeve, my dad, and Bill Del Biagio. And sadly, they've all died. John was my landlord at Eulipia for 35 years or so, and he was incredibly supportive and generous to a fault. He really was an old school landlord who kept his tenants in business when they otherwise would have failed. They just don't make them like John anymore. And Bob Keeve, what can I say that hasn't already been said about Bob? He was brilliant. He respected everyone. I don't think you could have a better role model. And Bill Del Biagio, what a wonderful guy, humble, unpretentious, generous. And I already talked about my dad. And then I can't talk today without mentioning my Rotary gang. And they are kind of a gang. These guys are my rocks, and they help me. They help one another. They help everybody. We got Bert and Cindy and Dave Davis, Brad Barron, Kenny Birdsall, Jack Hayes, Jaime Chavez, Dan Nevis, Jay Jensky, Darren Sparks. That's kind of our lunch crew, but don't hold it against us. And my other closest friends and supporters in Rotary who are always there for me with everything I do, whether it's great or weird. That includes Mike and Margie Block, Carl and Mary Ann. You know, who else do you know would let you live at their house for a year while you're remodeling your own house? Georgie Huff, Tom Bondi, Rich Braw, John Kennett, Julie Matsushima, Sal Pizarro, Clarence Stone, and many, many of you. I love all of you. And thanks to my new partner, Leslie Hamilton, she stuck with my lunacy for the next year. So please support Leslie during the next year to help her stay sane. And all of you do bring joy to my life. So my philosophy of life really is be kind and don't be boring. And dear God, I hope this isn't boring, because if it is, I just broke my #1 rule of life. So I'm hoping I'm doing all right here. So my Rotary goals for the next year sort of go from the ridiculous to the sublime. The ridiculous part is that we still have AV problems at the Summit Center. I don't know why it's taken us 10 or 20 years, but luckily we've got Mike Damberger, John During, and Carl Silker fixing everything. Thank you guys. I appreciate all your hard work. I'm going to focus on growing membership with my friend Matt Bell and his predecessor, Jerry Greer, and all of you. We're going to be asking you very formally for a lot of help soon. And I'd say give the gift of membership to people you care about. And let's all focus on diversity. It's about time for all of us. So my theme, as Suzanne's been wanting me to reveal, is downtown San Jose. This is our time. Downtown San Jose. This is our time. And I think it is our time. I'm really excited by the developments of Gary Dillabow, Josh Burrows, Google, Mark Tersini, Mark Lazzarini, Case Swenson, Jay Paul, and others. These are spectacular projects, but one could say what's different now in addition to the quantity of the development? Well, my one-word answer is residential. I've always known that we need lots of people living downtown, and that's finally going to happen. So let's give and then give and then give some more. And I don't mean money. Let's just give what we have. Our past presidents are an inspiration to me. I do believe we're the greatest Rotary Club in the world. And I want to thank Gary Shera and Brenda Sweeney for being district representatives this year. And I am committed to being back in the Summit Center by July 14th, which is my first meeting. I'm hoping Fernando will get a couple meetings at the Summit Center before his year ends. And if he doesn't, I'm going to offer him some weeks where he can fill in for me. I think of all of you as two groups, my friends and my future friends. So let's have fun. Let's do some good work this next year. And if you want to get more from Rotary, then do more, give more. Be more active, make time. The most fulfilled members are the ones who do the most. And I think that you find that is absolutely true. And finally, as my friends Dave Davis and John Popovich have always said, don't screw up. So I'm going to remember that. And as they say, you're only there for a year. How much damage can you do? Hopefully the club will survive my year. Now let's have some fun. Thank you all.
Wow. Do you have anything there, Suzanne, that you want to close off with? You got
Yeah,
a couple of minutes.
that was fantastic, Steve. Well, and a Rotarian that will remain nameless said, can we do a recall before he gets in? But we'll skip that one. Thanks, George. Gay asks, Steve, why did you get involved with Olympia, which is when Gay met you in the 80s?
Well, first off, I vote yes on the recall. So you got 2 votes, whoever that was. If that was Bert, I'm all in. How did Olympia happen? True story. We were a bunch of guys living together, and we drank some whiskey one night and said, "Let's open a restaurant." And 40 years later, here I am.
Oh, I love that. The Bogey nickname isn't Humphrey Bogart? That would have been my first guess. No, interesting. Okay. Yoder wants to know, ask Steve where his dad taught school and what little league did he play in?
There was a little freezing there again.
Sure. Let's try again. Where did your dad teach school and what little league did he play in? Did you play in? Can you hear us? Shoot. Yeah, you're freezing up, Steve. Shoot.
Am I frozen? Can somebody tell me whether it's me or someone else who's frozen?
You were a little frozen there. Can you hear me okay now?
I can now. Let me try it and then let me know if I'm frozen. What was the question about what did my dad teach, Suzanne?
Where he taught school?
My dad taught in Fremont at middle schools, Irvington district. And I think there was a second question.
What little league did you play in?
Oh, I played in West Side Little League in Santa Clara.
Love it. And one question I'll combine real quick as we close out. You're one of the most consistently upbeat and visionary people that we know. How do you keep a positive view on life, on the community, and on the future?
I hang around with people like Bert George, Carl Salas, and Suzanne St. John Crane.
I'm voting no on the recall. Back to you, Fernando. Thanks you so much, Steve.
Wow, Steve, that was just terrific. Of the 16 schools I went to before I graduated from high school, one of them was Santa Clara Intermediate. I used to live on a barn it was called the Block Fruit Company on the corner of El Camino, and I think Kylie or something. But anyway, I used to walk by the monastery there, where the nuns are in Santa Clara. I loved my time in Santa Clara as you did, and I really enjoyed your horseback ride through your history. Mine wasn't quite the ideal type that you just described, but I too enjoyed a very happy childhood. So thank you for sharing with us your very colorful background. And I'm all
Fernando.
Yeah.
Fernando, can you hear me?
Yes.
Steve, I just have one more little story I want to tell. That's a connection between you and me. Lived right next to the Block Fruit Company, and we determined that you lived within hundreds of yards of me for a while when you were a young man.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing you or anyone that looked like you at that time, because all the rest of them were Mexican field hands that were harvesting the Santa Rosa plums in that orchard. Man,
We stole.
I loved your stories. That's terrific. And I think our members have gotten a very better, much better and clearer idea of who you are and what you're likely to do. I don't know that they can tell that you're as cerebral as you really are. You hide that sometimes, but it comes out anytime anyone spends any time with you. So listen, thank you very much. I need to tell our folks that we've got Dean Erwin Chemerinsky coming in. He's going to talk about the new Supreme Court and what it will mean to us. And that's going to be much more important, as we will hear from Dean Chemerinsky. So that ends the formal part of our presentation of our club meeting. But if you want to stay after this, I think you're welcome to do so. There's a lot of folks that came on board, up to 149, my last count. But are we able to stay on, Ms. Hamilton?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I don't know. We might want to hear from Miss Linda Gold from Minnesota. Tell us what's going on in Minnesota.
Okie dokie, I'll stay on.
What's going on over there? Fill us in.
Oh, it's warming up. The snow is gone and there's leaves on trees. And yeah, I'm going to make it.
Good.
With a long ass winter.
We are parched and thirsty over here, so send some of that water this way.
Okay. I'll bring some with me next visit.
Okay.
I'm so happy to be flying again.
Well, Bob Rao, what did you learn today? You have to unmute yourself, pal. There you
That
go.
better?
That's better.
Okay, I found out that Steve Borkenhagen was a fellow Yugoslavian. And when he went to his little Yugoslav club here in San Jose, I was going to the Slovenian Center in San Francisco, eating good pizza.
Yeah.
Known Steve for a long time and really admire what he's done for San Jose.
Yeah, I remember going through Yugoslavia, having cevapcici and raznici.
Good.
At that time it was, and also we would go over to Napredak Hall because it wasn't just for Yugoslavians.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting back in the club.
Well, we look forward to having you back, pal.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ed, Correa, do you got anything that you want to tell us about the San Joaquin Valley dairy farmers?
No, I could relate to a lot of the stories, but I feel so sorry for our members who missed that. That was one hell of a speech and program. I learned so much, and I've known Steve since I've been a member, and I just learned I didn't know Steve. I mean,
yeah,
what a person. That was great.
Well, of course, we were all saddened to learn of his brother's loss, but a lot of our members in our club have experienced similar pain. Finn Jensen, you got anything to tell us? You're always sending me all these wonderful emails. Finn was my classmate at San Jose State, but maybe he's left. I don't see him there. Morris Chubb, you got anything going on for the homeless? Unmute.
Yeah, we always do, President Fernando. We've started recently a hot coordination meeting, and we're coordinating all the volunteers in the city of San Jose and in the county of Santa Clara so that there's no duplication of efforts. And we're getting them activated not only for that, but also for trying to define what happens in sweeps and whether we can prevent them. There's just a whole bunch of things that we're trying to do there. Thank you for asking.
Good. You bet. Anybody else got anything for the good of the order out there? Mary Curtis, got anything going on in your part of the bay?
Always a lot going on. I've been very excited to get closer into the work at Rotary, and I second what Steve said. If you want to get more, give more.
Yeah, that was a great soundbite, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You want
Yep.
more from more Rotary? Do more. Yeah,
It's
wow.
really true.
Yeah,
Thanks, Fernando.
yeah, you bet. Former President Jerry Silva, what do you got? We don't, so we'll let Steve Prouty take his place.
Thank you. I had a quick question for Morris. The city and the county have been much more accommodative to the homeless and letting them set up camps, partly to help prevent the spread of COVID. What are they thinking as we come out of this?
Well, there seems to be some movement afoot to resume sweeps. And what we've recognized is that sweeps are nothing more than a function of whack-a-mole. You knock one down and then what pops up someplace else. And what we hope to encourage the city councilmen and the county supervisors is to instead help the homeless stay where they are. They don't want to lose their possessions when they're swept. They don't want to have to go through that inconvenience, and get them to understand that by cleaning up where they are, they're more likely not to get swept. And so we're trying to move in that direction. Thanks for the question.
To that idea, Morris, about having a council person in each district take on responsibility for one encampment, make sure that one encampment gets the dumpsters and maybe a porta potty and maybe some water while we're waiting for some resolution of all these homeless issues. Anything come from that?
Well, I think that that has already been proposed, that councilmen do that for their districts. The biggest challenge, of course, is the whole thing about NIMBYs. And NIMBYs are the vocal minority. And we as concerned citizens and brothers and sisters of these folks, poor folks who are on the streets, we should be the not so silent majority. So what we want to do is we want to, really get Rotarians and whoever else are interested to show up to city council meetings, to show up to the County Board of Supervisors meetings. There's one coming up on May 25th about Laura's Law and about taking care of the most needy of the homeless.
Yeah. Rod Diridon, you got something going on with the Climate Change Committee. What kind of work you've been doing?
We had a meeting today with Climate Action Committee chaired by Deanna Prasad. She's doing a wonderful job leading the Climate Action Program for the club and expanding out. She's got a lot of different programs going. We talked about the district. Actually, the district committee has now grown to be West Coast, from El Paso, Texas, up to Boise, Idaho, and Tacoma, Washington, and clear down to Bishop, California. There's something like 100 different clubs now that have had programs that are expanding out. The ESRAG, Environmental Sustainability Rotary Climate Action Group for the Rotary International, and the Rotary Climate Action Council it always happens right when you're talking. And it's going strong, and something to be proud of for your year, Fernando. I think you've done a great job.
Thanks to you. You've been muscling this thing through. You even got Rotary International to print up something in the Rotary magazine. That's very, very, very good work, Rod. And Gay Crawford, anybody calling you up with some good news?
Yeah, actually, I have two for May 26th. So Sarah Janigan and Ginger Sotelo. So Anybody else, let me know. And we'll also try to do one in June before you move on.
Before I ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, thanks a lot to Jeremy Harris. We really are lucky to have Jeremy in our club because whenever his talents are needed, he's always there for us. So thanks a lot, Jeremy. You're a good man to have around. Ramiro, you're building anything? Ramiro Torres, are you building
Yes,
anything?
we are, President Fernando. We're building several things, some private schools, buildings, and high-tech facilities, and we're staying busy. I hired a new senior level architect for my firm just to help out, with the load of work we're getting.
Wow,
So
that's
thanks for
good.
checking in. Yeah,
Great.
all this new development, for President Fernando, I love it in San Jose. I actually I love Steve's project. I think it's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see it built. There should be a little bit of voice for Latinos that some of these buildings should capture San Jose and not just being like so very
Generic.
generic. Yeah, so anyways, just to put it out there, it's an idea. I know you build the Mexican Heritage Plaza. It looks great. So there may be some more presentation on the design reviews for downtown.
Yeah. Well, it does take some push from the community because at one point they wanted to put metal roofs on the Mexican Heritage Plaza buildings. And we said, no, we kind of like the tile roof, the mission tile roof. And she said, well, yeah, but it's less expensive to put this metal roof on the buildings. I said, well, it may be somewhat less expensive, but I don't think it's as attractive. And I think what we're looking for is being more attractive. So if you want to put metal roofs on it, I guess you can do that, but then you're going to have to get a whole new board of directors for the Mexican Heritage Plaza to come in because we would step away and let you go ahead and handle it on your own. Well, thank God we had some help from within the city, and they said, well, look, let's see if we can work something around. And they wound up putting, Frank Taylor is the guy that helped us out, and he agreed that we should have these mission tile barreled roofs, the tiles that we have now. Yeah, but yeah, you need to get some people in the community to let the folks know that that's of an interest. Of course, down in Santa Barbara, they didn't need that. They somehow or other got the idea that the city would look nicer if they had a coordinated building philosophy of what kind of structures they would put up.
So, thank you.
Yeah, Leah Schnorr, what are you doing? Are you working on anything?
We're working on a lot of things here at Notre Dame. Whoops. Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, we're working on a lot at Notre Dame. We're back in school and the Center for Women's Leadership is open.
Yeah, that's a great looking building. My granddaughter says she just had her prom. She might be coming over tonight for a vegan dinner, but because she dedicated vegan, but she's going to tell us all about her prom experience at the History San Jose, was it?
It was. They looked beautiful.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a little unusual not having any young men to squire the young ladies around, but I guess you can have fun just being with friends, huh?
Well, especially when you haven't been with friends for a year.
Exactly, exactly. Well, you and Mary Beth are doing a wonderful job over there.
Thank you.
Anybody else out there? Dave Beanie, you just out there working hard?
I certainly am. Yes. It's, yeah, you would expect that summer might bring a little bit of a break, but of course that's when construction heats up. And yep, working hard.
Good, 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 good. Well, we're all waiting for the time when we can get back into the Summit Center. So I'm going to see what I can do to be the guinea pig to check out the sound system, the video systems. I'll go on so we can get it all ready for Steve Borkenhagen. Listen, Steve is an amazing guy, as you heard, listening to his stories, but he's really an amazing guy. He's very deep thinker. I've been impressed with a lot of the programs that I've witnessed him present, because he and I are in a discussion group that meets once a month. And whenever it's his turn, you get a full turnout of our group, because you can always count on something very interesting and enlightening on his part. And he really is a jazz aficionado. So if you ever need to have some jazz in your life, go to Cafe Stritch, where his son is running that business now, so that Steve can relax a little bit and let his son take over the burdens of running a cafe. Dr. Prolo, you operating on anybody? Well, operate on that switch, on that mute button, and we'll hear you. Can't find it?
Is he on?
There it is.
See him.
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, I've long since stopped operating. Too old.
Oh, no. You're never too old, pal. You got all these skills. You can share them with others and say, here's how you cut.
My daughter, I have to rely on my daughter, who's followed me up at Stanford and now on the faculty there. So I have indirect influence.
Yeah, well, you set the standard, you set the bar for her. So she's at Stanford now?
Yeah, she's does pediatric neurosurgery.
Oh, wow. My daughter does pediatrician. She runs the anti-obesity clinics for Valley Medical Center here in San Jose. She's also a graduate from Stanford and went to UCSF. She's enjoying that. She just dropped by to say hi. So all of our 3 kids are here in town, so we get a chance to see them often.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah, nice to talk to you, Doctor.
He
Tom
did my
Fandre, you
neck
still with us?
surgery, by the way.
Tom Fandre, are you still with us? No? All right. Well, look, I think we've gone past the time when our Leslie Hamilton, our staff, can get back to work. So check in next week and we'll be back to you. Until then, hasta la vista, amigos.